strange gatherings used to take place there after dark. Teenagers looking for excitement, curious visitors, and depending on who's telling the story, a much older man who seemed strangely obsessed with the church. No one knows exactly what they were doing. The detail changes every time the story is told, but almost every version agrees on one thing. They believe they were trying to contact something that wasn't supposed to be there. Then one day, they disappeared. Days passed before anyone went looking for them, and when they eventually found near the church, none of them were alive. The details have faded into a rumor over the years. Some say there were signs of an animal attack. Others insist there was no explanation at all. Whatever happened became the kind of story people stopped discussing openly. The kind of story that survives only in whispers. And that's where the warning began. Not about the church, about the road. People started saying that whenever have answered, those gatherings never left. That it still wandered the fields surrounding the woods, waiting, watching, hunting. Most locals dismiss that part of the story, but they still repeat the warning. If you're driving through that area at night, don't stop your car. Years later, a woman who taught social studies at a local school claimed she knew someone who ignored that advice. According to her, the man was driving home late one evening. The moon was bright, the roads were empty, and on either side of him stood endless rows of corn. He'd made the drive dozens of times before. Nothing unusual, nothing to worry about. Then, without warning, he heard it. A terrible ripping sound. Not a crash, not a blown tire. Something else. Something dragging itself alongside the car. The vehicle jolted hard. For a moment, he thought he'd struck an animal, so he slowed down, then eventually pulled over. The countryside was completely silent. No traffic, no wind, only the tickling of the engine cooling breath, the moonlight. He stepped out and walked around the vehicle. At first, he didn't notice anything. Then he reached the passenger side and froze. Long scratches ran across the length of the car. Deep grooves carved directly into the metal, starting near the front door, continuing all the way to the rear bumper. The marks looked almost deliberate, as though something had placed its claws against the vehicle and simply held on. The rear bumper was bented outwards, twisted, as if something heavy had been hanging from it while the car was moving. The man didn't spend long examining the damages. He climbed back into the driver's seat and left as quickly as he could. A short while later, he arrived at a friend's house in the next town. Still shaken, he immediately brought his friend to look at the outside of the car. As he explained what happened, he watched the color drain from his friend's face. When he finished speaking, the friend asked only one question.